Hi there, my name is Halme-Tuomisaari and I am Associate Professor in Human Rights Studies at Lund University. In this short video, I will give you tips for a 1-month checkup, meaning 1 month before it is time to submit your thesis, on something that you can do to help you finish and feel like you are on top of the project. I'll share a very simple PowerPoint, which shows very easy and concrete tips. First, let me share my screen. There we go. And let's start with a slideshow. Okay, so when it's 1 month before it's time to submit your thesis, you really need to get an overview of everything that you have written as well as the work that remains. The easiest thing to do in order to achieve that place where you know the work ahead is to start by combining all the text that you have written. This means that you have likely been writing bits and pieces under different files, and you likely have a draft chapter 1 and a draft chapter 2, and then a section for miscellaneous text. Bring it all together into one master file if you don't already work with the master file. So combine everything, even if you're not sure if it's going to belong in the thesis or where it's going to go in the thesis, combine it all in one concrete file. Step number 2, go through the text and give headings. Here I mean that if you're working with Word or if you're working with another text processing software, actually don't know of the others, but if you're working with Word, these tips will work. Go and start using the different automated headings that you have, and you have them divided in different levels. So you have your main headings, then you have your level number 2 headings, and level number 3, and also level number 4 and 5. So go over the text, and for every main chapter, if you have chapter 1, chapter 2, mark that with level 1 heading. If you have 1.1, mark that with a level 2 heading. If you have 1.1.1, mark that with a level 3 heading. Go through all the text that you have. Of course, remember to give it also page numbers, but after that, go through all the text and give it different headings according to levels. Step number 3, use the automated function in Word to create a table of contents. If you don't know how to use this, now this is the time to learn. It's very easy. You can do a Google search and just see how to create a table of contents. Word will also instruct you on how to do it. Once you learn how to do it, that skill will stay with you. You can decide on how many levels that table of contents will show. So usually you can highlight 3 different levels. So that would be 1.1, 1.1 and 1.1.1. I think that if you go to level 4 or 5 levels, meaning that you would have 1.1.1.1, that is too much. However, at this stage, when you're trying to make sense of all the text that you have, use as many levels as you need. Just create a table of contents. Tip number 4, print everything that you have. So I usually don't recommend printing too much. It may be useful when you are learning how to edit your own text to print things out, but a really useful editing tip that's really simple to do, this is from a colleague of mine, is that you first change the font that you have been working on. If you use Times New Roman, change it to Arial or something, and then have a PDF, convert it into a PDF. And then open the PDF and you will see the text through fresh eyes. So instead of printing everything on paper all the time, you can utilize this editorial tip to get a bit of distance and see the text with fresh eyes. However, at this 1 month checkup point, I do suggest that you print everything. So after you have combined everything in one file, after you have given everything different levels of headings, and after you have created a table of contents, step number 4 is to print everything. After that, it's time for traffic lights. So many who have been working with me know that I always suggest that you use highlighting markers, and this is the time to take them out again. So take out red, yellow, and green highlighters. And what do? you concretely go over the text and highlight. So green is the color that you use for any text that is already fully ready, absolutely ready to go. No more editing needed. It's just text that is ready. Yellow is for everything for which you have a draft, but which still needs further editorial work. And that 1 month before you are ready to submit would likely mean most of the text that you have produced. I would argue that at this 1 month mark, you likely would not and actually should not even think that any text is fully green. One of my other writing suggestions is that you write in a spiral, which means that when you edit the text, you end up doing some rewriting. So you should not aim to have at least not a lot of text that is green. Rather, you should think that everything will be revised at least to some extent. So most of the text that you would have at this stage would be yellow. Now, red is for any text that is not yet written. So you may go back and think, before you do all of these steps, go back to step number 3, where you give headings and think, okay, so in this chapter number 3, I think that I would want to have a point 3.3, which will be, and then you give it the heading that you think that you want to write, even if you have not yet had time to write it. So you can add things that you know you will want to add, but you have not yet written, and any text that is not yet written, you will mark with a red highlight. After that, what you do is you combine the traffic lights to a table of contents, which means that you will take the table of contents that you printed as one part of this full file that you have now in front of you in paper form, and you will concretely go over chapter 1, 1.1, 1.2. Did you mark that text as green, yellow, or red? And you will combine these marks on the table of contents, which means that in one glimpse, you will be able to see all the work that remains. You'll see concretely which parts of the text are already green, meaning that you don't have to return to them, which parts are yellow, and most importantly, which parts are red and need still to be written in full. Then you should have a table of contents that has been guiding your thesis writing up until this point. So you should have some kind of a plan, whether it's in a form in an actual table of contents or something that you have kind of just written out. You should have some kind of a plan for what you have been intending to do. So the next thing to do is to compare this plan to the actual table of contents that you now have. Check whether the two correspond to one another. So the text that you have actually written, does it correspond with what you were planning to write on? Are there any parts that are missing from the table of contents entirely from the plan that you hope to have? Make sure that the two correspond to one another. This is also the moment to check on whether you actually have been writing your thesis on what you thought you would be or were planning to write it on. And this takes me to point number 9. Check that the structure flows logically. So look at the table of contents on the text that you actually do have and think, are the subtitles symmetrical? Sometimes at this stage, you may see that actually under chapter 2, you have a 2.1 and a 2.2 and a 2.3 and a 2.4, maybe a 2.5. And then you may in addition have 2.5, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and these are actual examples of what I have seen. So if then what happens is that you only have under chapter 6, you have chapter 6, and it may be under chapter 3, you only have chapter 3, and then chapter 3.1 and 3.2. You may want to do something about that, because the table of contents is a very effective way of communicating to your reader, aka also known as your examiner and grader, that you are on top of your project, that the thought process behind it is flowing logically, and that the thesis is well structured and balanced. And I know people are a bit different when they read, but for me, I tend to get quite annoyed if I see theses that are sort of very asymmetrical, that you in some parts see chapters that are extremely elaborate and very long. Let's say that they take 20, 25 pages out of a 65-page entity, and then you see chapters that are extremely short. So make sure that you balance them out by rethinking, okay, do I have the right chapter headings? Do I need to shift content from one chapter to the next? Something else that's really annoying is if in some chapters you do have, for example, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and then in another chapter you only have 2.1, end of story. Or something that I also find quite annoying, if you have a ton of subheadings, even in a single page, then rethink that. Do all of these need to go in the table of contents? My rule of thumb, as already became clear, is that you would only have 3 levels, meaning 1.1, 1.1, and 1.1.1 in a table of contents, and don't go crazy. That's too much for me, 2.5, 0.4, 0.3.1. A reader needs to be able to follow the structure that you are communicating through your table of contents, and honestly, with so many sub-levels, the reader is just getting lost and slightly annoyed. Finally, combine a table of contents to your calendar. Again, those with whom I've been working know how to construct a calendar to monitor your progress. Those who have not heard these tips from me, it's actually really, really simple. You just write out a calendar in whatever way or form or shape is best for you in order to monitor your progress and the passing of time. So combine the table of contents to your calendar. Mark concretely which parts you will write when and set exact dates. Set for your calendar a date by which time you want to have no more red text. I would suggest that you aim to have this date at no later than 10 days before it's time to submit. You will want to have that time to edit all the yellow text so that it all becomes green. And also you will want to do something that I'm calling vacuum packing, for which I'll share another video very soon. But mark into the calendar concretely, when are you going to be working on which part? When are you going to be working on chapter 1? When are you going to be working with chapter 3? When are you going to polish up the remaining yellow bits of text into green? And the goal, of course, will very simplistically be that you have no more yellow, definitely no more red text left, and everything will become green, nice and in advance to your submission date. And with that, I suggest that you carry on. Now you will know exactly what work remains, and you will be able to monitor the passing of time while getting your thesis done. The main point of these very pragmatic, concrete tips is to give you a sense of being able to relax, so that you know that time is not only passing, but you are staying on top of your project. You are able to monitor how it progresses while time goes on, so that you can also enjoy the process. Remember to have fun. Even though writing a thesis can be quite stressful, it also really can be a lot of fun. Remember to find that enjoyment. Relish the discovery of new insights that you get from your data and analyses. And of course, a bit of good luck never hurts. So good luck also for finishing it. I'm sure you will do a great job.